There are more jobs where you can, like you said, you can start early and you can work your way up. It takes some time. Got to be humble. Got to have a lot of humility. Take some time, work your way up, and you can move into roles, and you might have to move companies. I have no problems with our employees coming to me saying, "Hey, I've got this really great opportunity. I have to leave the company. I appreciate everything that you've done for me." Go. I love that. I love that we've been able to help you grow and figure out what you want to do. And if we can't provide that to you, then I want you to go and I want you to leverage the experience that you've had here and go to this other company and do awesome.
Brian, welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. It's awesome to have you today. I've got Brian Vrablic with Rulmeca Corporation, a manufacturer of motorized pulleys, and you are a fairly recent president of the company, right?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm president of Rulmeca Corporation since January of 2023. So about a year and a half now. But I've been with the organization since September of 2023. So uh, a little over 10 years now. So
Got it.
coming up on 11 years now that I've been with the organization.
What was your first position at Rulmeca?
Yeah, so I started as my title was sales manager, but I started as it was effectively like a regional manager type position where because I was the only salesperson.
Okay.
I reported to the president. I was the only salesperson along with the president that we were kind of both kind of tag teaming the overall sales of the country. We're responsible for the entire United States, so there was a lot of traveling. Now we sell through distribution, manufacturers, reps, and then we sell a little bit to direct to end users. We also sell through OEM customers, of course, like conveyor builders.
Yep.
But I guess a little background on Rulmeca. Rulmeca Corporation in Wilmington, North Carolina, which I'm responsible for, is a wholly owned affiliate of Rulmeca Group. And Rulmeca Group is a global Italian owned company where we have maybe 1,200 employees globally. We have um, about
Wow.
19 about 19 affiliates globally, three of which are in North America. So there's Rulmeca Corporation, there's Rulmeca Canada, and then Douglas Manufacturing, which is a recent acquisition for Rulmeca Group.
Okay.
They're located in Pell City, Alabama.
Okay.
Rulmeca globally is a manufacturer of conveyor components, but Rulmeca Corporation is responsible for a specific component, and that's what we call a motorized pulley or a drum motor.
Yep.
So we're responsible for motorized pulleys and drum motor sales for the continental United States plus Alaska and Hawaii. We do a little bit in South and Central America with some distribution partners in there, but we don't generally focus on that. We're focused primarily on the United States.
Right. Right.
And then the other affiliates, wherever they are in the world, they're responsible for their respective markets. That's kind of how Rulmeca does things globally.
Understood. So as president, what's been kind of your biggest challenge? I mean, being in it a year, I know you moved up to the company, so you had some experience. You understood kind of what was going on, but that must have been a big transition for you.
Yeah, you know, you get humbled pretty quickly because, it's like you said, you've been in the organization for a number of years and you kind of know how things operate. You know how the owners operate. Because I had regular interactions with the ownership group, even though I wasn't reporting to the family. I was, regularly having meetings with them, traveling to Europe, having meetings at our sister companies, and I had a really good feel for how the organization operated, what our value proposition was, and how we went to market and how we presented ourselves. And when I took this role, my boss now, who is one of the owners of the group, he's an Italian, super great guy. He looks at me and says, Brian, you're going to be fine on the operations side. You're going to be fine on the sales side. You know how to grow the business. You know how our production systems work. You know how all of that operates. You know how to communicate with affiliates. You get the inner workings of our organization. your biggest challenge is going to be the human resources side. And he was absolutely right.
Hmm.
You get humbled pretty
Yep.
quickly because you start to have to work through challenges with your employees that are not everyday challenges for whether it's frontline salespeople or sales managers or whatever. So you you have to kind of rethink your strategy about what your goals are for each day, right?
Yep.
We want our corporate culture to be. I like to say I want it to be set up like a championship athletic team where we want the best performers on our team, and we want everybody to be striving towards that one goal
Yep.
of putting our best foot forward and making sure that we're explaining our value proposition and backing up our value proposition with the customer, whatever that is. And this can apply to, you know, widgets, whether it's bearings or we can, sprockets or any really thing. Like our team needs to be focused on our value proposition. And
Yep.
our value proposition is really about speed, customer service, and providing a product that solves unique problems in the conveyor world. And we focus on that on a regular basis. So we try to educate our employees, and we try to make sure that all of our employees are kind of rowing in the same direction.
Hmm.
But invariably, there's challenges, right? You have personality differences.
Right.
You have employees that have challenges outside of work that you have to manage. You have that you have to be cognizant of, and you have to be sympathetic to. You have to have a lot of empathy for whatever position people are in, and you just have to work through those. And I think the best thing that I've been able to do to help alleviate those human resource challenges is really just make sure that everybody in the organizations knows that they can come to me whenever they need to,
Right.
and I'm available for that, and I'm available to have those conversations. I'm not going to say I'm too busy, I can't talk to you right now. I will make time as soon as I possibly can for you, right?
Yep.
Certainly, if I'm in a meeting and somebody knocks on the door, I'll be right out, you know.
Right.
But we have to make sure that people are comfortable, and I'm trying to do my best to make sure that people are comfortable coming to me. And look, I might not have a solution for them, and I might not be able to do anything about their particular challenge that they're having. But the one thing that I'll do is I'll listen, and I'll say, look, if I don't have a solution right away, I'll say, look, you got to be patient with me. I'm going to try to work through this with you, and we're
Yep.
going to try to find a solution together. There might not be a solution in the short term, but there might be a long term type of solution, right?
Right.
There might be a short term solution, and I have the ability, based on my position and based on the autonomy that my holding company gives me, to make quick decisions that can change processes or quick decisions that can change policy, which is helpful. But those are the sorts of things that you have to kind of wade through that you're not necessarily ready for when you make the transition from whether it's sales or operations or finance or whatever into complete operational responsibility.
Right. Yeah, and in that, approachable leadership, I think isn't definitely an important aspect to leadership. And I think a lot of times the president or the CEO likes to kind of set himself into, that bubble and pretty much delegate everything. But I think it is important for employees to know that they can, come to you with issues and try to work through those solutions. And also, the closer you are to the people on the ground doing the work, the more you're aware of what the actual problems are. So I think that's a really good point. And I know you mentioned kind of just about understanding the different personalities. And that's an issue that I feel comes up a lot because I think as leaders, we like to assume that people are driven by the same things. And sometimes, somebody doesn't want to, spend more time on the beach and on vacations or going on cruise or whatever it might be. They might not want bigger sports cars. They might want advancement, or they might want to feel like they're progressing in their career. How do you kind of, I guess, analyze those personality types, what drives people, and, kind of give them what they need to ultimately give you what you need?
Yeah, it's really challenging question because we had to make a pretty significant shift in mindset from, when I started with the organization 11 years ago, we had 5 employees, and we were all kind of, you know, this is what we like to do, right? This is like we all, I won't say that we lived to work, but we were more on the side of living to work than working to live,
Right.
right?
You had a
That was
passion
just
for
how
it.
we just had a passion for what we were doing, and we saw the opportunity, and we just really were all in on the organization. And because there were so few of us, we all had to wear so many hats, and we were working a lot to help get this company up and moving and to where we are now, which is 14, 15, 16 people, more square footage, more revenue. Like, now that we're there and we're continuously growing, we've had to shift this mindset into exactly what you're saying, which is not everybody is here because they love what we're doing. They're here because they have other passions outside of work
Right.
that work is subsidizing and work
Right.
is paying for. And so we recognize that, and we give people a lot of freedom, a lot of autonomy to, you know, just make sure you get the work done, right?
Mhm.
We've got situations where some people needed to, like, let's say you wanted to take a class. We had one employee in particular who wanted to take a class, but the class was, and it was completely unrelated to work, but it was something that they wanted to do. They were passionate about. It wasn't necessarily affecting us. It wasn't an advantage for us. We weren't paying for the course. The employee was paying for the course themselves. But they said, I want to do this, but it's Thursdays from 2 to 4. And I said, okay, well, if it's only Thursdays for 2 to 4 and you can make up the hours in the rest of the week, do it. If
Yeah.
that's what you want to do, do
Yep.
it. We as leaders can't be in 2024, when computers are a thing and remote work is a thing. We as leaders can't be so hard lined that everybody has to be in the office for 8 hours a day glued to their desk.
Yep.
If the work is getting done and the revenue is growing and your profitability is good, then why are we putting restrictions on employees that want to do things to make themselves better and to make you a more enjoyable company to work for? I mean, the labor market is so tight right now. To be putting restrictions on employees because that's the way it was done in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, like, that's not real. Like, that's
Yep.
just not real. So we
Yep.
don't do that. We look at most things on a case by case basis, and if it's right for the organization and it's right for the individual, and we're able to get the same sort of productivity out of that individual, and they can do this thing, whatever it is, I'm all for it. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
I love that. Yeah, I love the mindset, and I think it's been a hard transition for a lot of business owners, especially over the COVID period where we had to make a lot of adaptation to our business models. And but I think the one positive thing that came from all of that, and trust me, I'm hypercritical of everything that happened there. But the one positive thing is it made us a lot more aware of people's needs and what our employees are looking for. And we really had to strive to figure out how we can continue to stay relevant to them and the lifestyles that they want and adapt our businesses to it. And it's challenging. I know, I mean, a lot of my employees work remote, and I don't know if that's possible in your business. Do you have any remote employees?
So we're a manufacturing outfit, right?
Right.
So none of our employees are technically remote employees, but people in our sales department, people in our finance department, the occasional operations side. If somebody's like, because our operations team takes care of purchase orders, takes care of drawings, takes care of vendor stuff, takes care of a whole bunch of things that you don't necessarily need to be in the building to do, but you have
Yep.
to be in the building to build the things we build. So of course our production team can't really be remote.
Yep.
And during COVID, we were open during COVID. Um, our sales team was remote from about March until September of 2020, and then we were back in the office. But just today, even my finance manager sent me a text this morning saying, "Hey, I'm not feeling the best. I'll be in a little bit late." And then he called me 9:30 and said, "Hey, I'm going to work from home because I was. It's the end of the month for us. We're doing all of our end of the month stuff,
Yep.
and so that takes a tremendous amount of time. When there's constant interruption, you can't focus." And so he called me and says, "Hey, look, I got was constant interruptions yesterday. I need to be home just focusing on the end of the month stuff. I'm going to stay home and work." And I said, "Fine, no problem. Like that's not disruptive to the organization. He's available by telephone. He's available by email. Like I'm in my office right now, doors closed. If it would be no different than if I emailed him or called him on my office phone.
Right.
It's the
Exactly.
same. It's the same. So
Yep.
I don't really have an issue with any of our employees that are in a position to complete work outside of the building to do that. Our salespeople travel. Our salespeople are based in Wilmington, but they travel to territory. So they're remote during their travels anyway.
Hmm.
So we're set up. We've all got VPN. We all have the tools available, Teams, all the Microsoft Suite products, email, whatever. We're all set up. And kudos to our holding company. Pre-COVID, they had spent a tremendous amount of money globally to set all of our affiliates up on Teams and get that training rolled out and to start using remote products, so to speak, to,
Yep.
to be productive remotely. They started using those products pre-COVID. So
Yep.
when COVID hit, like for us, it wasn't disruptive from a productivity standpoint. It really wasn't that disruptive because we had already had trainings, we had already had the softwares installed, we were already ready to go and familiar with the products, the remote working products. We didn't have to. There's no ramp up time for us, so
Right.
it was super convenient from that respect. But I
Yeah.
don't, back to your original question, as long as the work is getting done and you're not abusing the system, so to speak, I have no problem with our people working remotely when it works for them. And just knowing that we are an in-office, we are an in-person company.
Right.
Um, but if there's days you got to take to, schools closed, like this is a big one in the county that we live in because the daycares all follow the school schedule. And
Right.
so if the schools are closed, the daycares are closed, which is a really strange
It's
thing.
ridiculous.
Like it's super strange, but people that got kids in daycare though during the school year, they'll be like, I school's closed, daycare's closed, I don't have a sitter, I gotta work from home today. I'm like, well, okay, that's just what am I gonna do? You're not bringing your kid to work.
Right.
Like that's not a thing.
Right.
You
Right.
can't have that. So we have to work around that stuff.
So just to go a little bit deeper into the employee issue, because this has been one of the hottest topics over the past probably, well, man, it's probably going on 4 years now. But what has been so? How many people do you have working there in Wilmington?
So at present we have 14 employees currently. We have three
Gotcha.
open positions. So technically we should have 17. We have
Gotcha.
three open positions. Two of those positions are machinist type positions in our shop, and then the other
Okay.
position is a sales position that will ultimately be a hybrid inside outside sales position.
Okay. Got it. So one of the biggest challenges a lot of manufacturers had or are currently having is you have an older generation that's kind of moving out of the business. They're getting to retirement age. We need to replace them with somebody. In up here in our local market, there's different apprenticeship programs and things like that are attempting to feed that need. There's a shortfall there, and we're still hearing a lot of complaints from the manufacturers we work with that we're just not finding the right people to fill these positions, and even when we do get them, they last 2 weeks, they're gone. You know, how are you approaching that challenge?
We're it's a bit worse in the county that we live in. So the county that we're operating in is New Hanover County, North Carolina. Is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. in the state of North Carolina is one of the fastest growing states in the country because of let's call it domestic migration. And that domestic migration, in fact, we just saw a report from UNCW, which is University of North Carolina, Wilmington. We saw a report a couple weeks ago at one of our, we have a local manufacturing partnership that is trying to tackle this exact problem.
Yep.
The Cape Fear Manufacturing Partnership was created to tackle this exact human resource problem. And we saw that were it not for, there's a lot of things happening, but were it not for domestic migration, the population in New Hanover County would have decreased over the last 10 years instead of increasing about 40%. Okay.
Okay.
The problem is that domestic migration are in New Hanover County are retirees from the Northeast. It is people that are coming down here to work remotely that are not necessarily looking for work. So they're, highly educated people, or they're, people that are working in investment banking that may be coming to Wilmington because they like Wilmington, but they don't necessarily need a job. They're not looking for work when they come down here. They already have a job, or their income is not W-2 based income. It's investment based income that is not, they don't need to work.
Right.
So our population is really skewed here in New Hanover County. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to partner with the local community colleges. We're trying to partner with literally high schools. We're bringing in twice a year, we bring in groups of high school and middle school kids to view our facility and see what we do and understand that, light to medium manufacturing can be a rewarding career if you don't want to do the traditional type college type career, white collar type career. That light to medium manufacturing is a viable career, and you can make a good living doing it. So we're trying our best to manage that. It's very, very difficult, very difficult. There are some things that I could get into that, we're a small business and we're trying to manage our own costs, but there are a number of other manufacturing organizations in the New Hanover County MSA that are driving wages to a level that for small to medium sized manufacturers, the wages just aren't sustainable for us. Right. So we have to find creative ways to reduce other costs to pay for the labor costs, because there are other large to extra large manufacturers. These are global manufacturers that are, if I said their names, you would be like, oh yeah, we know who they are. But they have, and rightfully so, they have either national or global pay scales, and they take those pay scales and they might refine them for the local market. But in general, their pay scales are pretty consistent throughout the country. So when they open up shop here in the Southeast, or they have existing facilities that are growing in the Southeast, they use those same pay scales. But they're out of whack. They're skewed with respect to what the actual labor market is.
Sure.
And it's driving wages up significantly. And it's becoming very, very difficult for small to medium sized manufacturers in particular to sustain those wages and to compete for employees, because your labor costs spike so high, you can't increase the prices on your product quickly enough. And you can't go get more customers quickly enough to maintain that, balance. It's been a real challenge for us. We're trying everything we can to leverage, like I said, local manufacturing partnerships and leverage community colleges locally and leverage programs like that. But it's been very, very difficult. Very difficult.
Yep. Yeah, it's not a problem with an easy solution because it's complex, and I feel like it's a lot of it's a cultural problem. I talked about this in the last call, how there's a lot of this mindset you hear being tossed around. This nomadic lifestyle is very kind of looked up to, and And there's also this kind of get rich quick sort of mentality. You see a lot of people getting into the Bitcoin trading and things like that. And I've watched family members do this, and they dump $1,000 into it, and then next week they blow up their account, they dump another $1,000, and it's like you're spending so much money trying to get rich quick. If you were investing that in something that actually made sense, it would. But I think there's this overarching philosophy in our country right now that's leading to this labor shortage. And as much as we try to get in front of these kids in high school, that mindset's already ingrained and it's
Yeah.
there. And
I think
I
that,
almost feel like we
yeah,
need to figure out how to get involved earlier. We need to. I'm a big fan of I'm a big fan of physical labor. I think it's an important part of being a man, and a woman. But I think that actually doing physical work is good for you, and it's good for your mentality. Um, and the idea that you get more fulfillment from the money is just inherently false.
yeah, I think there's, you make an interesting point. I really think that you're absolutely right that this challenge is ingrained early on. We start around the seventh grade age to start introducing our stuff to people. I think what's been always not done well, because I've been in manufacturing my entire life, my entire professional career. I've been in manufacturing. I'm from the Midwest, born and raised in the Rust Belt. Manufacturing was a thing growing up. It's just where I lived, you pretty much knew, like, when you went to college, you were going to college to go and get a job in manufacturing. That was kind of the university mindset that where the university that I went to, they churned out engineers and business majors for the manufacturing sector. That was their niche. They did very well at that.
Yep.
But the one thing that manufacturing in general hasn't done well is explain the types of technologies that we're using as
Hmm.
the backbone of our manufacturing to make it sexy. It's very difficult. Look, we're in conveyor manufacturing, right? We make conveyor components. There is very little that's sexy about a conveyor roller and a conveyor pulley. Very, very little that's sexy about that. But the technology that we're using behind the scenes to make those things is actually pretty sexy.
Yeah.
Whether it's the marketing tools that we're using, whether it's the CNC technology that we're using, whether it's the rubber lagging technology that we're using, a lot of those things are actually very sexy,
Hmm.
but it's very difficult to explain in the hour that we have a seventh grader in our building twice a year. It's also very difficult to explain at a job fair for, you know, business graduates from UNCW or engineering graduates from NC State. Is very, very difficult to explain to them, hey, this actually can be a very interesting and rewarding career for you. And we are using technology. We are using all of the things that you want to do and you want to have this sexy career. We're using that. We are leveraging that stuff. It's
Yep.
not what we're selling.
Right.
We're selling a can on a stick. But the things that go into that behind the scenes are actually pretty cool, pretty sexy. But it's always, for manufacturing, it's always been very, very difficult to make that connection, right? To make that connection and say, yeah, manufacturing can be really sexy, but you have to go two steps back into the process, because what we're selling, what we're putting out at the dock is not very sexy.
Right.
It's a very difficult thing to do, because as a young person coming out of school, they want sexy, right? They want tech. They want to go work for Nvidia. They want to go work for, pick your fintech company or biotech company, or they want to go work for a company that's sexy, whether it's pharma or whatever. They want this sexy role, and to your point, they want money. They want a lot of money that they're not necessarily. I won't say they're not ready. They haven't earned it, but there's not a lot of those. There's not enough of those jobs. There's only so many of I'm coming out of high school, I'm coming out of college, and I'm making 250 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're a really good software engineer and you're going to live on the West Coast, where 250,000 a year is the equivalent of 90,000 on the East Coast,
Right.
it's you're not there. You're not there.
Yep.
There's only so many of those jobs. There are more jobs where you can, like you said, you can start early and you can work your way up. It takes some time. Got to be humble. Got to have a lot of humility. Take
Mm-hmm.
some time, work your way up, and you can move into roles, and you might have to move companies. I have no problems with our employees coming to me saying, "Hey, I've got this really great opportunity. I have to leave the company. I appreciate everything that you've done for me." Go.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that we've been able to help you grow and figure out what you want to do. And if we can't provide that to you, then I want you to go and I want you to leverage the experience that you've had here and go to this other company and do awesome.
Yep. That's a great
We
mindset.
don't we don't explain that to people. You're not locked here. You're not locked into Rulmeca. I want to give you tools. I want to give you training. I want to help you grow. And if you get to a point where we can't get you to that next level where you want to be, then you should go. You should
Mm-hmm.
go and you should leverage the things that you learned here to do awesome at the next place. And doing awesome at the next place probably means you're going to make more money. And then the next place, and then the next place.
Yep.
But why can't you start at a very interesting place for a few less dollars that's making a good living
Right.
instead of trying to swing for the fences and being miserable?
Yep. Well,
That's
yeah,
the question I've always had.
even 20 years ago, you could find interns that would come and work for you for experience. That's all they were getting, school credit or experience. I'm damned if I can find them, you
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I mean, yeah. Well, I would rather pay interns because you get what you pay for. At the end of
Right.
the day, you get what you pay for it, and you know, I just don't think you get the respect when you say, "Oh, you're getting experience." They're like, "Yeah, what does that mean?" That doesn't mean anything because I can't leverage it. I don't know how to leverage it. I don't understand the value of it. So pay me. Fine, I'll pay you,
Yep.
but now you actually have to do the work.
Sure.
So
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think there's something to be said for mentorship and for, if you add value to our company and we pay our interns. I mean, I'm not making an argument for not paying interns. But, if you add value to our company, there's a place for you here. That's the bottom
yep,
line. So are you willing to come and show that to us, or do I have to spend 6 months training you at my cost and really get no work of value out of you, and
yeah,
then you move on to another company? Is that the way it's going to work?
yeah. That's also why we're pretty hesitant. We don't uh, interns. We've tried to bring on interns on the sales side for us before, and we've not done a particularly great job of that. That has nothing to do with the interns. It has everything to do with the corporation, and that we just couldn't spend the amount of time
Yeah.
that we needed to, let's say, coach and mentor. Where if you're going to bring on interns, my advice is always have a dedicated person that person is in the office all day, every day, ready to answer, ready to mentor, and ready to stay on top of that person to help drive them to success. Because if you bring in an intern, inherently they don't know anything.
Mm.
It's your job to coach them and to bring them along on that journey, but you have to do that. You can only do that if you're in the office. Like in our case, we were traveling so much that the intern was often left in the office alone doing
Hmm.
God knows what. And it's
Right.
like, oh, that was a horrible mistake on our part. We have to
Yeah.
have somebody that's there, that's coaching, that's driving, that's, saying, okay, next task, next task, next task, to coach them and teach them how to be a productive member of society, so to speak, because
Right.
you don't know what you don't know. I mean,
Yep.
something as simple as, hey, I've got a meeting with a vendor. I want you just to sit down on this meeting with this vendor so you can learn about how the process works. And oh, by the way, before you go into the conference room, chuck your shirt in and put a belt on. Like
Sure.
I know it sounds crazy, but that's the sort of stuff that we shouldn't be upset about having to teach that now. It's
Right.
just how it is.
Right.
Like, that's how it is. We shouldn't be upset about having to teach that. We just have to recognize that those are the sorts of things that we have to teach now, and we're just going to do it. Don't
Sure.
get upset about it. Just do it.
You're right.
Because I can tell you, if you coach that along, and you can do it in a good natured way, and you can give the person a ribbing about not having their shirt tucked in. But if you coach them and you explain to them why, because there's a power dynamic in the meeting and we need to leverage that power dynamic, and if we present better to our vendor than they do, there's a power dynamic there and we can leverage that.
Yep.
If you then coach that way, that person is never going to they're never going to not tuck their shirt in a meeting.
Yep. And they're going
That's
to
just
remember you
example.
for telling. They're going to remember that you're
Right.
the one that taught them that.
Yeah, it's the why. I get on a soapbox because humans are humans. They just want to know why. Like, why are we doing this? And young people today have been encouraged to ask why, and they do a pretty good job of asking why. Well, tell them the why. Don't just say because I said so.
Yep.
It's like, who cares? This is why. This is
Hmm.
why we do this. If you don't agree with it, okay, we can have a conversation about that. But this is the why. And if you can't explain the why, then you should ask yourself why you're doing it yourself.
Sure. I really like your philosophical approach to things. I can tell you spend a lot of time thinking about people and how to manage them and how to manage personalities.
I spend a lot of time driving in the car to sales calls.
Yep. So you must. I have to assume that you're a reader. That you at least listen to some audio books and things you learn from.
I have converted mostly to audiobooks and podcasts, but yeah. Although I will say I was very proud of myself. I was on vacation 2 weeks ago for 11 days, and I finished an entire 500-page nonfiction book. I was so proud of myself.
That's awesome. Which
I was
one?
so
What
proud
was
of
it?
myself. It's a book called Fourth Wing. It's written by a woman who writes uh, um, just fantasy books. It's about a young girl who gets entered into this dragon flying school, which was a pretty interesting book. I liked it. I think it's book one in a series of three. I haven't started the other ones yet, but yeah, I do enjoy reading. I do enjoy listening to podcasts, um, mainly I'll call it work related type podcasts, whether it's current events, whether it's sales type podcasts or human resources type podcasts to help me leverage that sort of information.
Yep.
But I tell my people this all the time too. Is like, as salespeople, we are encountering a number of different personalities every day. We're encountering a number of different people with a number of different interests. And we have to have a certain amount of useless knowledge, right? Because if we have that certain amount of knowledge about certain things, we can then at least be engaged a little bit in the conversation.
Sure.
Certainly we're not going to be walking into customer sites and talking about politics and religion, but we need to be at least understanding what current events are happening, and we need to understand what's happening in the market that can
Right.
be affecting them. Legislation, for example. In our world, we rely very heavily on government spending, whether it's local level, state level, or federal level spending to help drive our business because our customers rely on that. So um, there was a particular federal infrastructure bill that's very important infrastructure bill. It can be controversial, but to a certain amount of people. For us, it's been great because we've been able to reap the benefits of that spending. But if you don't know what it is, then you can't have the conversation about it with your customers and understand how they are also leveraging that infrastructure bill in their world. So
Hmm.
it's those sorts of things. It can be super mundane to try and wrap your head around all of the things that are happening in the multitude of industries that we work in. But I try to encourage everybody on our team to read about current events, read about what's happening in the industry. You know, we do a lot in food processing, so we should be keen on food safety problems. Are there any recalls that happen? And then if there was a major recall on, any of the protein processors that we work with, what was the recall? Was it related to something that we might touch? Like what is this all about? And how are we then leveraging that for communications with our customers? Because if we can be subject matter experts for our stuff, but we can also be process experts in our customers' processes, and we can understand the back end of their business, then that makes us better salespeople. That makes us better subject matter experts.
I completely understand. Staying up with current events and economics and all of that, which I did kind of identify. I was just doing a little bit of reading about you, and I saw some things you said about kind of global economics, and it seemed like you were pretty knowledgeable about that subject. But I can see in a complex business like yours, where your product can be used in a lot of different industries, you really have to have an overview of the market. And I would assume too that you do have some. It lends itself to diversification because perhaps when the mining industry is down, the food industry is up. Talk about some of those interactions.
Yeah, we've been super fortunate that we've been able to leverage that diversity of product. But it was only over the last 10 or 11 years. We had a non-compete with another company that we weren't able to sell into food processing until 2013. So the corporation was started in 2003 after an acquisition, another global acquisition that the corporation was formed. As part of that global acquisition, we had a non-compete with another company for 10 years, from 2003 to 2013. So we weren't actually able to diversify our product at all, other than inside different markets within the bulk handling market. So whether it's heavy mining, I'll call it gold mining or silver or moly or whatever, like that type of mining is one set, and then rock and aggregate is another set. And then we had other kind of like mobile crushing and screening products and whatever, and those sorts of things. That was how we diversified. We were diversifying inside kind of this silo. We were doing this inside the silo.
Right.
Now we have these two different markets, like you said, because we have these two different markets, like you said, when one's up, one's down, whatever. But we've also been able to further diversify the actual product mix, and we can now sell all of these products to all of the markets, right? Mm-hmm. So that helps as well. And it's been good because the balance of our portfolio and the balance of our market has kind of leveled out. And we know pretty well year to year how much of our revenue is going to come from one and how much is going to come from the other and what those targets are. And it's helped to stabilize our forecasting, and it's helped to really allow us to go after the right customer when we need to go after the right customer.
And has your main strategy for kind of getting in front of that right customer been that outside sales position? Have you had any, what have you had success with as far as new customer acquisition?
Yeah, so our best route to customer acquisition is direct salespeople. We sell through distribution. Mm-hmm. We sell to OEM customers, and we have a couple of manufacturers reps across the country. Yep. But by far our best resource for new customer acquisition and infiltrating existing customers, and growing inside existing customers, is a direct salesperson. And it's because our product is a bit unique in that not everybody needs our product, and you can do what our product does with a different thing, mm-hmm. far less expensively. So we are competing with what we call exposed drives or external drives, and because we are a different technology, we have to find a problem that's a pain point that is a high enough pain level that the customer is willing to pay for this solution.
Right.
Now, once they do that, our experience is, once the customer buys into the technology, so to speak, they will then go and find other opportunities in their organization where they might not be having problems. They just like the technology.
Right.
But we have to find the problem first. We have
Right.
to go and say, what types of problems are you having with your conveyor drive? And how can we help that? That's kind of difficult to do if you are not a direct salesperson and you don't have the intimate knowledge that we have.
Yep.
Because in general, commodity type salespeople are going to walk into a facility and they're going to see the thing that's on
Right.
the system,
An
and
indicator.
they have one of those on their line card, and they say, I can get you that. Mine's better for reasons A, B, and C. So buy mine. Buy the
Right.
one I have. But it's the same thing. It's the same technology. What we're saying is change the technology because it will last longer and it will treat you better.
Right.
And like, it's literally like going to a guy who's been driving a horse and buggy his entire life and saying, buy a pickup truck.
Right. Why?
They're like,
getting
I'm
there
not
just
doing
fine.
that. Yeah. And then
So,
he finds out he can haul more stuff and, do more things.
I kind of want to understand the technology a little bit better because I can't say that I have any specific level of expertise in the conveyor space. So when you have independent pulleys that have their own power mechanism, versus I guess the other option would be you'd have a centralized power system that would then feed power to the conveyor and spin the pulleys. Those are really the two options there.
Now, so the way to look at it is, so we manufacture what's called a motorized pulley or a drum motor, where the motor in the gearbox is inside the drum, is inside
Right.
the tube.
Right.
In general, people will drive a conveyor with what we call an exposed drive, where you have a pulley, and that pulley has a shaft on it that is then keyed to a motor
Right.
or keyed to a gearbox.
Right.
And then the gearbox is keyed to a motor, or the gearbox is keyed to a shiv, and that shiv goes to another motor or whatever.
Right.
There's a whole series of transmissions that are involved in driving. Then you put power to the motor, and the motor spins, and it turns the gearbox, and then it turns the pulley. In our case, you put power to the pulley, the motor engages the gearbox inside the pulley, and we're
Yep.
driving the conveyor belt that way.
So, and this is just pure speculation, but I would imagine that when you have that enclosed system, it's less prone to fail because when you have all of these pulleys tied together, there's more possibility of something getting stuck in them, or if the central motor breaks down, everything breaks down. Like, what's the big advantage there with the?
And so that's really the value proposition that we're providing. Our value proposition from a product standpoint is we are reducing the risk of failure,
Mm-hmm.
and we are hopefully increasing mean uptime and availability, because the components that are generally exposed to the environment that
Yep.
are prone to fail because they're exposed to the environment
Right.
are then packaged inside the pulley,
Yep.
and they're continuously lubricated and they're protected by the pulley itself, which is a hermetically sealed pulley. So
Yep.
that's the value proposition. We're reducing the risk of failure of components that are normally failing because they're exposed to the elements. That's
Yep.
that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I can see that being a huge benefit in the mining industry.
Yeah, there's safety benefits. There's space benefits. There can be benefits where we deploy them in different ways that you can deploy what we call an exposed drive, because, for instance, if you're driving a belt that has a pulley, if let's say it's a reversing belt and you're only trying to drive from one end, it might be difficult to put another exposed drive on the other end, where you can put a motorized pulley on the other end and you're not taking up any more space.
Right.
There's no more space that you have to take up. So from a guarding standpoint, from a safety standpoint, from a size standpoint, we can generally, you know, we have some advantages there, and then there's this inherent reduction of risk with respect to conveyor drives.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it sounds innovative. It sounds awesome, and I, you kind of something you said earlier resonated with me about kind of having this new product to market or somewhat new product to market. You have kind of that market penetration strategy where you almost have to educate people first, and as a marketing agency, one of the techniques that we tend to use for that type of a product is number one, identify what the problems are people are having. Find out what search terms accompany those problems. Hey, I'm having my my external gearbox break down on the conveyor. How do I resolve this? And then you solve that problem for them with some thought leadership content, and gain interest in the product like that. Have you guys explored any
Yeah, we've been able
outreach?
to. It's one thing that we've been able to do is, like I said, we want to position ourselves at Rulmeca Corporation as subject matter experts. One of
Yep.
the ways that we've done that is on our YouTube channel. We have a number of how-to videos
Mm.
on how to change oil, how to calculate power, how to do all of these things with respect to conveyor drives, and it positions us as conveyor drive experts.
Yep.
And then we link all of those things to our website. And so, and Google and YouTube, because they're all kind of interrelated,
Yep.
has done a really good job of leveraging keywords inside our YouTube videos. And we use a service to transcribe all of our YouTube videos, and then we put
Okay.
all of the transcriptions on our YouTube videos in the descriptions. We put
Yep.
the transcriptions, and then the search engines will find that. And then when somebody's searching on keywords, then our YouTube videos will usually come up before our website comes up.
Wow. That's pretty
And then if they
cool.
Yeah, and then if they click on the YouTube video, then that all links back to our own website, and then it's just this circle that we've created,
Yep.
and that's how we're generally leveraging keywords and search, because what we found was we can do AdWords and we can do PPC, and we can drive a lot of traffic with PPC to our website, but it wasn't translating to conversions. And
Hmm.
so having PPC is great, and having keyword generation is awesome if you have a product that everybody needs.
Right.
Like if we were selling more of a commodity type product where we were just doing direct replacements of a
Yep.
competitor's thing,
Yep.
it might work. PPC might work a little bit better for us, but
Hmm.
we've largely abandoned PPC because what we were finding is we were driving all of this traffic to our website, but it wasn't converting into. And we have forms on our website. We have contact us forms that drive and lead generation on the website, but it wasn't translating. It wasn't. They would click on the ad, and it's like, oh, that's not what I want, and I'm off, and I'm gone.
Yep.
So we were getting the right keywords, we were getting the traffic, but it wasn't converting. And so we changed our mindset and said, you know what? We're just going to provide content. We're going to create content. We're going to provide content, and we're going to link it back to our website. And if that's what they want to talk about, then they can come. Then they can click on the lead generation.
That's great. I mean, that is a really, really smart way to think about it. And so if you've got a service like you're a die caster, you're a fabrication company, you want to get those bottom of the funnel people that are saying, I'm looking for a fabrication company. For
Yep.
you got to
Yeah.
educate those people first, or you're not
Yeah.
going to make
Let's
the
just start
sale.
at the top. Yeah,
Yep.
that's exactly right. Because we're not even close to the bottom of the funnel. It's a perfect way to put it. Like normal manufacturers are creating a product where the person that is searching on the web is already near the bottom of the funnel, and all they need to do is get them to start the conversation, and
Yep.
then their sales team can take over and close.
Yep.
We are starting so far above that because we have to educate on the product itself. We
Yep.
have to not number of people don't know what this is. So we have to create content for free to explain this, to explain what we do and explain why it's helping, and give away tools for people to use, and then use that for lead generation.
Man. Yeah, this section this part that we just talked about, I think is going to be so valuable for a lot of companies. I really like it.
We spent
Um,
a lot of time and a lot of money figuring this out, but
yep.
and that's what we see works for us. I mean, we're monetized on YouTube. We have a number of subscribers. We have, hundreds of thousands of watch hours on YouTube, and YouTube has been really a really powerful tool for us to leverage us being subject matter experts in the conveyor world.
Yeah. So picture a company that is in a similar position as yours, kind of bringing a new product to market. What piece of advice would you have for them to get started down this route? Because you know when you haven't done it before, you haven't created YouTube content, you haven't made video, you don't even know where to start. Like, what's the first step there?
The first step is to start. Okay, that is legitimately, that's the first step to start. And when we first started making content, none of us were comfortable in front of the camera. None of us understood, like, we barely understood lighting and understood, like, what to set the camera settings at. Like, who cares? Do it on your iPhone. It takes care of it. Just start the content.
Yep.
Just start creating the content. And I can't stress enough that if you create how-to content and you explain what's happening in the description section of the content, the algorithms will pick that up and you will start to skyrocket to first pages, and you can leverage that. But
Fantastic.
you have to start the content. Like,
Yep.
whether it's, start just throwing a camera in front of your face and saying, "Hey, we do this now.
Yeah.
Come to our website." And then just to get yourself comfortable in front of the camera, right? Just to get yourself prepared to speak, and doing what you do. And who cares if you got to do 10 takes? Edit it, whatever. Go get
Yeah.
Premiere Pro and edit it. It's fine. You
Yeah.
know,
What do you use for the transcription?
we use rev.com.
Say that one more time.
We use rev.com.
Rev.com. Okay.
Yeah, so rev.com is, I mean, no free ads, but rev.com has been really good for us because it's relatively inexpensive. It's a few dollars per transcription, and their AI is so good that it watches the video, it transcribes it, it sends it to you, and it happens within hours.
Yeah.
You submit the video, rev.com has this back to you within hours,
Hmm.
and it's you proofread it. You have to proofread it because their AI is not perfect. No AI is,
Right.
but it is very, very good. Very,
Very
very.
cool.
You'll spend minutes proofreading versus hours transcribing, and for a couple of bucks, done. Yeah, it's
Wow.
nice.
Well, that's awesome. That's an awesome tip. So, where do you want to be in a year, personally?
I'd like to be in a place where I'm I'm more comfortable engaging with the staff to help them grow, if that makes sense. Like, it's been difficult to me to approach staff and say and ask that question. And I really want to do a better job of that. And I think that's a pretty good short-term kind of goal, to be like, all right, let's sit down and, like, where do you want to be? And tell me about that. And then how can I, as the leader of the organization, help you get there? And
Hmm.
do we have that place available for you? Because that's also a conversation you have to have. Is like, we don't really have that place available, but maybe I have contacts in the community that we can get you to that place.
Yep.
You know.
I think that's an awesome perspective. Actually, funny enough, I'm not getting paid to promote this book, but since it's sitting here, this book right here, in
We're
terms
full of free
of
ads today.
how you interact with employees, he talks a lot about radical transparency, um, a lot of awesome leadership principles in this book, Ray Dalio principles. Highly recommend it.
I'll have to take a look.
Yeah, I thought you might be interested in it.
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I mean, I love your perspective. I love how you obviously have a passion for the work that you're doing. You have a passion for people and doing the best you can. Um, yeah, I just think that you have a lot of great insights that other manufacturers are going to be interested in hearing.
Yeah, I hope so, and certainly anybody can get a hold of me at any time. I'm I'm willing to chat about most anything.
Yeah, well, we will make sure that we tag you and include your information, and I'm sure some people are going to be interested and want to chat some more. Anything else that anything really exciting going on that you're pumped up about?
Well, we're going to be at Mine Expo, so we're excited about that. Um,
September?
in September, it's in Vegas. We'll have an entire group booth there, so all the affiliates from North America will be there. People will be able to see all of our stuff. We're excited about that. We just got a lot of really cool things that are happening right now. We've got some new technology that we're working on at the global level. We've got some technology locally that we're working on. We're doing some testing right now. So there's a lot of cool things that are happening from an R&D standpoint at Rulmeca, and we're super excited to roll a lot of that stuff out. So stay tuned, I guess.
Can you give me any insider tip on the technology, kind of what's coming?
Yeah, so we've got some monitoring stuff that we're working on the motorized pulley side, and then we've got some other technology on the food processing side that is kind of secret squirrel stuff, but we think it's going to help. We think it's going to help from a food safety standpoint, so that'll be good.
Yeah, when you mentioned food safety, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to bring this up or not because you never really know what previous work relationships were like. But you have kind of a local connection to me here in Erie.
Yeah,
Did you
I
spend some
did.
time here?
I did. I lived in Erie. So I worked for Erie's Magnetics. I liked Erie's Magnetics. It's a great company. I like the leadership that I work for. Um, but living in Erie, I lived there for 2.5 years. I say it was the longest 10 years of my life. It was. I'm a Michigan gangster. So I was born and raised in the Midwest. I was born and raised in the Great Lakes region. I lived in Michigan for 18, 20 years. Went to college in Indiana. I lived in Indiana. If you include my college years, I lived in Indiana for 15 years. The Midwest is where I was, and I went to Erie, and so I was used to cold winter and snow. And I went to
Right.
Erie, and one winter we had 140 inches, and then
Woo.
the last year that we were there, May 3rd, it snowed 3 inches, and I think it was probably about that time when my wife looked at me and she says, "Well, I'm leaving. I'm not staying here. You
You
can
can come
you
or
can come
go.
along or not." And I was like, "All right, well, I guess we're leaving." And so July we moved to Wilmington, North Carolina.
That's a big step up in weather. And honestly, I think you got a bad taste. I speak highly of Erie. It's where I grew up. I live in the country, so I really like. I'm a hunter. I put up with the winter. I can't say I love it, but I'll tell you what. The past 5 years have been mild. There may be some
Well,
exceptions in there, but we've gotten very little snow. The cold has come for a while. Sometimes you get 60, 70 degree days in the middle of the winter. It's a weird.
yeah, so you kind of hit the nail on the head with Erie. So look, Erie's a great community. Um, I We didn't hate our time in Erie. Erie to me is the best between July 15th and August 1st.
Yep.
But we're not. You hit it on the head when you said you like to hunt and fish. We're not winter outdoorsy people. We don't
Right.
hunt. We don't fish. We don't do that
Right.
sort of stuff. But I tell you, the people that were thriving in Wilmington or in Erie were winter outdoorsy people or people that like to be outdoors in general. I like to be outdoors in the summer. You
Right.
know, I don't want to be trouncing through the snow for 10 months out of the year. Like that
I
was
I,
just
I
it was just too
completely
much.
understand. Yep.
It was too much.
We shoot down to Florida quite a bit in the dead of winter and avoid some of the worst of it.
Yeah,
So,
see? Yeah, see? I didn't have that luxury. I had to
Yep.
grind it out.
Yep. Well, I love the connection. I'm glad we have we have that in common. You've experienced some of your what was so if you had to name just like one really good thing about Erie, what would it be?
Sarah's, without question. Sarah's. It's the best.
Yep, the peninsula.
Yep.
I have a 3-year old. I don't think I've wait. I take that back. I've taken her there once. So yeah, I probably
Yeah,
need to
it's
step up my
awesome.
game.
So good.
Yeah.
It was our favorite spot to go to.
Yep, it's a great location. It's kind of a for those of you that haven't been there, it's kind of like an old school diner sort of vibe. You got your hot dogs,
Here's
hamburgers, ice cream.
here's the other thing that Erieites take for granted that they absolutely should not. So Erie has an open container rule in the city limits where you can take alcohol to
Yep,
go from the bar.
yep,
And there are very, very few cities in the country that have that. And I'm telling you, it is great. That was so fun because when they do downtown festivals, when they did, whether it was Rib Fest or whether it was, what did they do, a River Fest or whatever, a Bay Fest or something. They did 2 or 3 festivals throughout the summer. And it
yep,
was so great because you didn't have to worry about, you could just walk into the bar, get a plastic cup and walk out, and then you're back in the street at the street fair. It was great.
yep.
That was so fun. And now living in Wilmington, where Wilmington is like one of the prime places to have that type of a rule, and they don't have it. It's a little bit disappointing that we have nice weather 11 months out of the year, 12 months out of the year, and we have different alcohol rules, so to speak.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and that is something that I don't think we really think about too much. Just kind of like, but yeah, that is really nice just to be able to walk around downtown. Um, yeah, we still have the Rib Fest. We just had it. We have our 8 Great Tuesdays down by the water.
Yep, that was fun.
Music that was
Hmm.
fun. Um, so so I guess on the other side of the coin, Wilmington, beyond the weather, like what's the number one reason to live there?
Uh, well, the weather's really nice. I mean, it's nice. I will say, like, the people in Wilmington that are most everybody now is a transplant, but people are really super friendly in Wilmington. Everybody's trying to help. I will say, like, the pace of Wilmington is a bit slower than the Northeast and the Upper Midwest,
Yep.
where you don't have to be in a hurry to get somewhere. Um, you can take your time. That's nice. It's Wilmington is the growth rate of Wilmington is actually pretty exciting because it's allowing Wilmington to attract new businesses. It's allowing Wilmington to attract new amenities. Like we have a new uh, indoor skydiving place that's opening
Oh
up in the
wow,
next few months.
that's
We
awesome.
have, yeah, it's all kinds of really great stuff that is coming into Wilmington because they recognize that this growing area can support it. 10, 11 years ago, we don't think we would have ever seen things like that. So the growth is both a blessing and a curse. And I think the blessings kind of outweigh the curses right now.
Good. Well, I'm glad you like it there.
Yeah, I love it. Hmm.
Improvement on Erie.
Yep.
Well, once again, just thanks so much for coming on with me today. I'm really excited about the Manufacturing Insiders podcast, and I think that the insights that you shared into marketing, into management, HR, I mean, all that stuff is just really really valuable, and it's come from a lot of experience and effort on your part.
Yeah, I'm glad I could help.
Well, enjoy the rest of your day, Brian. Thanks again, and like I said, I will be tagging you. Happy to send you copies of anything that you want, and
Yeah, perfect.
hopefully we'll be able to stay in touch down the road.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Brian.
All right, bye.
Bye.